You're listening to TJs One of Us for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANYPodcast. You can also find us on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Hello and welcome to another episode of TJs One of Us here at the Always Next Year Podcast Studios. If you've noticed our new music intro, that is the Jackdaws, who are now going to bring us in for each segment. That is an Irish rock band. It's actually my brother's band. So do the Jackdaws a favor, do me a favor, and you're going to visit their website. It's www.jackdaws.com. They're currently building this website, so it may not actually be up by the time that you listen to this, but this is the 76ers podcast here for the Always Next Year podcast, and I have with me today, I have Kevin driving home, which is hilarious, please don't die, and Rob. Fellas, how are we today?
Could be a lot
good,
better.
Man.
Probably should have asked one of you at a time. That was brilliant. But
The Sixers don't have me feeling too good right now.
Sixers don't have anyone feeling super confident in this current moment. Did you guys both watch the last two games?
I watched a good portion of Game 4, and I watched way too much of Game 5.
And Kev, yourself?
I watched all of Game 4, and I only watched till mid last game, Game 5. I was like, I'm going to go to bed.
I think you made a really good life decision there. So obviously, the last two games really went poorly for the 76ers. You know, we were saying, you know, continually, we needed Kawhi to have an off night. He wasn't phenomenal in Game 4. He certainly was not great in Game 5, and the 76ers failed to capitalize on both of those. We're going to touch on Game 4 real quick, just for a few minutes first, and then we're going to touch on the just complete debacle that was last night. So
yeah, that was terrible.
It was awful last night. So we're going to have a little bit of event sesh over that game. But Game 4, if Joel Embiid is even 50% healthy, the 76ers win that basketball game. And even with him maybe only 15-20% healthy, as he was very clearly laboring through that game. That fourth quarter in particular was one of the worst I've seen from him in his Sixers career. If he's even remotely okay, the 76ers win that basketball game. How frustrating was it for you, Rob, to sit there and watch that type of a performance from your MVP caliber center, who seems to just not have been healthy this entire playoff run so far?
Oh, it's incredibly frustrating because, I mean, first of all, you have the fact that he was sick for, Game 2? And then seemingly he was completely healthy for Game 3, where he went off at 30-some-odd points, and then somehow he's sick again. Like, I don't get what's going on with him. And that's the reason why we're losing the series right now. If he wasn't sick, honestly, we would be up. We would definitely be up at least 3-2. We potentially would have won the series last night. But, yeah, it's frustrating. It's the fact that it has to do with his health more than anything is what frustrates me.
Again, his constant health status is something that has frustrated us here on this podcast and a lot of Philadelphia sports in general, or sports fans in general. Kev, what is your takeaway so far of especially the last two games of Joel Embiid? You're one of the most confident Sixers fans that I've ever met, and even you admittedly so turned off Game 5 last night midway through because you couldn't take it. What's something that you're noticing from Joel Embiid, and do you have any lasting concerns about some of his physical woes?
Well, I'll be honest. I'm probably one of the few to say this. I don't know why. I guess it's just, I'm going to be honest. I'm giving him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. I am kind of giving him a bit of a pass, a bit of all right, I can kind of understand, because he's not dealing with just like a regular cold. If he had a regular cold, he'd be able to dominate at a still 100%. You know, anyone could probably still do that. I've played sports when I felt sick, and I still went and played, and I still played as well as I was supposed to, or what was expected of me. So it's not a cold. It's clearly, they're saying it's an upper respiratory infection, and that sucks. I've actually had that before, and it does suck. And also, it affects everything. It affects your whole head. It affects almost every part of you. And at the same time, he's dealing with gastroenteritis or whatever. He's dealing with diarrhea every day, which is basically what he's dealing with that. And that sucks even more. But I don't know what contributed to that. You know, he might have eaten something bad. You know, you could
too
eat
much
something
Chick-fil-A.
raw. You could just really, yeah. I mean, I'll admit, yeah, he's probably eating too much Chick-fil-A or too much Taco Bell. It's like, dude, you're a professional athlete. You need to like for this month, for 2 months, lay off the junk food, lay off all the bad stuff, and just focus on staying healthy. So I hope he learns his lesson with that. But all in all, I'm kind of giving him a pass. I'm blaming more so Ben Simmons because, you know, I think we can win without Embiid. We could still beat the Raptors without Embiid because we have Tobias Harris, who's not doing anything. We have Ben Simmons, who, without a jump shot and without a layup, he's just running up and down the floor. He's just getting steps in. So he's kind of pointless right now, and he's more pointless than all of them. Tobias Harris can at least hit a three-pointer. He's just not as consistent as we thought he would be. And JJ Redick, you know, again, he's not getting the screens. And when Joe's not giving him the screens, he's not getting the jump shots, and he's not getting the shots he needs. And, you know, it's affecting everything. But basically what I'm saying is I'm not really blaming Joel as much as everyone else is. I get if he was healthy 100%, we probably would be up the series. We probably maybe even would have closed it out last night. But he's not healthy, so we're, you know, relying on him. We are relying on our star player. He is our all-star player. He's the starter of the Eastern Conference. He's probably the best center in the league, and he's probably the best center in the East, or the best player in the East at full length. But you know, we got, you know, I blame Ben Simmons more so than anyone else. He's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing, and he's turned over the ball. You know, he's well, and he's sucking. You know, Embiid is sick, and he's sucking. But Ben Simmons is not sick at all, and he looks terrible. He looks like he just picked up a basketball. It looks like the Monstars legit just came in and took all of his talent. Like, what is going on?
So that's a fair take, you know, and that's something we've seen, you know, all throughout Sixers Twitter at this point, sports radio, and if you're having conversations with people that you work with, you know, you would assume that if the true MVP of your team, and it is very clear this team goes as Joe goes, if he is not well, you would certainly expect Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Jimmy Butler, you know, and then even your reserve pieces, your bench pieces, you would expect everyone to come and play that much harder to try to take some of the burden off of Joe. He is playing through ailments, whether or not we agree with how he's, you know, gotten these illnesses or his physical woes. And a lot can be blamed on the 76ers organization as a whole for how they managed him this season. You don't get this sick if your body's not that run down. He's a 7'2" guy who was probably still growing, you know, and still working into his body. That's a lot. And to play the first half the way that he did, first half of the season, not first half of any point of the series, with those types of minutes, that's a lot. But you would expect guys like Ben Simmons to come in there and perform it at a different level and to really elevate their game. And we've seen Ben, in the face of adversity, rise to that occasion. A big thing that is being brought out now, and something that's being more and more noticeable throughout this series, is Ben cannot be Ben sharing the floor with Jimmy Butler. They are both very ball dominant, and in order for each of their main skill sets to flourish, the offense needs to run through them. Rob, what is your takeaway from Ben Simmons' game right now with an unhealthy Joel Embiid? You know, I think it makes his life easier if Joe's right, you know, because it wouldn't matter if Ben was bringing the ball up, if Jimmy was bringing the ball up, or Toby was bringing the ball up. We saw it in the latter part of the Brooklyn series, and we saw it, you know, in game 2 or 3, whatever it was, where he really went off. You know, what is your takeaway from the Ben Simmons and the Tobias Harris? Not so much Jimmy Butler; he's pretty much shown up, but the lack of consistent follow through from guys like that when your star center is out.
Well, it's really weird because, as you said, when Embiid missed a couple games in the Brooklyn series, you know, it's almost as if they played even better without him. Simmons had an easier time getting to the basket without Embiid taking up space down there. But Toronto's a different team. Toronto's a much better defensive team than Brooklyn is. They're much more physical than Brooklyn. So I think the fact that Embiid is playing but he's not healthy, that really hampers Simmons because Embiid, when he's healthy and he's playing well, Toronto's got to, even if they can shut him down, they've got to focus on, putting the right guys on him to shut him down. When he's not playing well, they can focus more so on shutting Simmons down or shutting Tobias Harris down. And when that happens, when none of those guys are working out offensively, that basically leaves the whole game in the hands of Jimmy Butler, which we've seen a few times in this series where he's been the only guy who's gone out there and done anything. So that's a big issue, and that's why they need Embiid to be healthy for Game 6.
I agree, and Joel Embiid's health, to me, it goes back to that Game 4. If you somehow squeeze a victory out of that, and you go up 3-1, the pressure for Joe to play in Game 5 up in Toronto, or to play high level minutes, wouldn't have been there. It wouldn't have mattered. You needed to win one game in the next 3. Going up north again in the series tied 2-2, knowing two of the potential remaining 3 games will again have to be up north, Joe has to play. And it doesn't matter if he's 5%, if he's 50%, or if he's 100%. Joe has to go, and he's got to give you whatever he's got. And unfortunately, you see it, I think, in Ben Simmons most. He lacks the ability to find a true identity when Joe is on the floor, but not right. That, to me, shows the greatest effect or defect of Ben Simmons. So Game 4 for me was really, when the 76ers win or lose this series, it's going to come back to either the result of Game 4 or how they chose to respond after their ass kicking in Game 5. But in Game 4, did you guys have any further notes on anything from that game before we start talking about some of the mess that was last night's blowout loss?
I was just really disappointed at the fact that they weren't able to close it out. They had, what was it, like a 6 or 7 point lead in the fourth quarter. They're a few minutes away from going up 3-1 in the series. And honestly, I thought that if they went up 3-1, that Joe wouldn't have played Game 5.
There's a strong possibility.
I think that they would have sat him out last night if they were up 3-1. But the fact that they blew that lead, they couldn't hit any shots down the stretch, gave Toronto a lot of momentum, and you saw that momentum on full display last night. They went from being in the driver's seat in the series to really obviously having to fight for their lives in Game 6 and hopefully Game 7.
And Kev, did you have any other further takeaways from Game 4? Possibly the lack of a fourth quarter from Joel Embiid with the turnovers, the missed free throws.
Basically, just the same old classic Sixers, trust the process era shit. Just them not being able to close the game. Just it looked like I was watching a game from last year, 2-3 years ago even. I just was. I'll be honest, I wasn't even disappointed. I wasn't even shocked. I just was like, all right, there we go. That's going to happen. And then, I turned it off. And then I was like, you know what? They got a chance. I think they're going to go into Toronto. They've did it before. They're going to win. And so they went in Toronto, and then they got killed.
And they did. They got obliterated. And it wasn't, I think even after one, I think they were only down a point or two. But it never felt like they were in that quarter. And then certainly from the second quarter on, Toronto just distanced themselves in every single category, in all of the things that we can measure through stats and all the things that we cannot measure through stats. Toronto dictated the pace and emotion of that entire game. And by that, the feel of the entire series right now. It's bizarre. Rob, you kind of spoke about it just a moment ago. You had stated that, 76ers were in the driver's seat with 6 minutes left in Game 4. And from that point on, it's been all Toronto. And you go in, you go back up north, you get your ass kicked. Now you're down 3-2, and you do have your backs against the wall again. And this is that punch that for the fan base right now has certainly taken a lot of people out of it. So I want to focus on some of the things, that they need to change and adapt from Game 4 and 5, the last quarter and a half of Game 4, and then all of Game 5, that you guys personally need to see going into Game 6 back here at home, and then a hopeful Game 7, as you both had mentioned. So I'm going to start, Rob, with you from Joel Embiid. If he's not right, do you play him? Do you keep him out? Seems like Joe's in a position right now that no matter what he does or what the organization chooses to do, unless he plays a perfect game, he's going to be under a ton of scrutiny from fans all over the city. What do you need to see from Joe?
I think that now with your backs against the wall down 3-2, you've got to play Joe. I think that there's no option not to. But if you're going to play him, you need to know, is he going to be at 50%? Is he going to be at 75%? And then you've got to base your game plan off of that. If he's going to play, but he's only at 50%, well, then you need to figure out an offensive game plan that runs through Jimmy Butler, maybe involves Tobias Harris a little bit more, figuring out ways to get Ben Simmons easy drives to the basket. You got to make adjustments based on Embiid's health, and you got to know what that is going into the game. So that's what they need to do. They need to figure out, okay, how healthy is Embiid and how effective can he be tonight for Game 6?
I think that's a really, really fair assessment and something for Brett Brown and his staff to truly dive into. We do have the luxury of having 4 of the top 5 or 6 players in this series. If one of our guys goes down, that is exactly why we acquired 2 mid-season. We have 3 others that should theoretically be able to beat you every single night out, or at least compete and make this game difficult. Knowing what you can get out of Joel Embiid in a Game 6 on your home floor is going to be completely integral to really the fate of the 76ers. Kev, you've been oddly critical of Ben Simmons on this show, and you're one of the least critical Sixers fans that we know. From Ben Simmons, what do you need to see? Do you need to see a certain level of assertiveness? Do you need to see him simply just take jump shots? Do you need him to see Game 2 and 3 defense that he put out there? What is it from Ben Simmons that would make you feel a little bit more comfortable going into Game 6?
Well, we all know he's not going to take jump shots, so I already ruled that out right now.
Smart.
But the only thing the only thing I honestly want to see him do is drive to the basket and finish, dude. Stop passing every time you get there and get stopped. They stopped it every time he did it. He didn't even attempt to. Well, he did it that one time and got the and one and got him 3 points on the board. But I was like, yeah, that's not going to do.
Yeah, when they were down 18 already.
Yeah, I was like, that's not going to do anything anyway. And then we were down. What is it? We went from 21 down to 13, and I was like, oh, we're going on a run.
And then he had a terrible turnover.
Then Ben turns it over, and then that's that. Right now, it's that infamous look of Brett Brown, leaning back on the chair, being like, "Are you kidding me?" Like they benched him last night. They were like, "Dude, you're sitting. We're sitting all of you because you suck." But honestly, all he needs to do is, if he's afraid to shoot, which clearly we all know that, but he just needs to drive to the basket, dude. If you don't make the shot, you took the chance. You got contested. People, not everybody makes 100% of the shots they take, but they miss 100% of the shots they don't take. So he needs to drive and shoot it. He needs to dunk it or do something, dude. You're 6'10", 200 something pounds. You have the ability to do that. You are a first round draft pick. Stop being afraid. Stop being scared. I don't know. What is it? Like, what is it? Like, are you getting what Markelle Fultz had? Like, why are you not shooting? So that's all I want to see him do, dude. That would make me happy. If he did that last night and still scored the amount of points he had, but I saw him go in and go up against his defender and go up for that dunk and missed it, or go up for that layup and miss it, at least he tried it. But the fact that he just drives in, immediately passes it out, it's like, dude, they already know that. They know that. A 10th grade high school basketball teacher would see that and be like, okay, we can stop him. So, if I'm going to say this now, if he cannot improve, from here on out, and I'm talking, if we lose this series and he doesn't improve next year throughout the whole season, and even if we go to the playoffs and all that, trade him, get rid of him. I'll be done with Ben Simmons I'll be done with Ben Simmons. I don't want to trade Joel Embiid because he's too much of a perennial all-star. He's too much of an elite character player, someone that you don't get every year, center. Look at Karl Anthony Towns. Look at all these other centers who have come in the league and have dominated for maybe a year, and then you don't see them again. Joel's dominated 2 years in a row, and he's still showing promise of greatness. But Ben, you suck right now. If you keep sucking, we're going to say you can go to another team because you bring nothing to the table.
Tell me how you really feel, Kev.
So I think that's a 3,000% just an unfair assessment of who and what Ben Simmons is. I think that Ben Simmons is an incredibly smart NBA basketball player, and he knows his limitations. He knows the things that he's good at, and he obviously knows the things that he is not good at. He will not pull up for jump shots consistently. I don't know that I've seen him take a single standstill jump shot all year and sink that shot. That's just not his game yet, and he's smart enough to understand that. Where I am on board with you. Career. So yeah, where I am under the same kind of impression and critique as Kevin, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, and he's more creative with the basketball than almost anyone that is ever going to be guarding him. I don't care if you get to the line and you make 50% of your free throws. That is still 50%. 50% from the line is better than you never taking that shot and turning the basketball over, having empty possessions. There has to be a level of confidence and assertiveness there. It is very clear to me that Ben Simmons in the playoffs and in big games does fear the free throw line. He does not want to be on that island. He does not want to be exposed as someone who cannot shoot the most easy routine shot on a basketball floor. If he can begin...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
As I said, I just think he wants to keep his body intact because he knows he's going home to Kendall Jenner every night.
Well, to me, I don't care who you're going home to. You're playing basketball in our city right now. And to me, he has an incredible skill set that would allow him to get to the rim at will. We've seen it. We see it in games mostly that don't matter or games against significantly inferior talent and competition. But he can clearly get to the rim anytime he chooses. He needs to finish strong at the rim. Kev, you said that perfectly. There are too often where he goes too soft and he just goes for a lay-in. That can't work. You're big. You're strong. You need to dunk that basketball. And if you draw contact, if you get guys like Kawhi or Pascal, if you get any of these guys in foul trouble, you're helping your team out, even if you're only hitting one of two every single time that you go to the line. That, to me, is the biggest thing right now that we can all criticize Ben Simmons for, because he's shown the ability to be able to improve and be good in that area. Right now, you have a Joel Embiid who physically cannot go to the level and extent that Joe goes. Ben Simmons has to be that guy that gets to the free throw line. I think between the two of them in Game 5, they went to the free throw line 7 times, 5 times. That's inexcusable when you have two supremely talented and physical players such as those two, and they get 5 free throws between them. That's inexcusable. If Joe can't bang bodies right now because he might poop on the court, Ben, you got to go to the hole, and you have got to finish strong. You cannot go in there and lay these balls in soft or kick it out and force yourself into really, really bad turnovers. It just can't happen. Player that we haven't talked too much about, and we continue to view him kind of as the fourth star at this point, is Tobias Harris, who has not come over and been as advertised. I think he was shooting 43 or 45% from behind the arc in LA. He's come here and he's shooting at least 10% lesser than that. He's a very streaky player. He's a streaky shooter. His defense is suspect at best. He hasn't really fit in yet. We're always good for at least one Toby game, I think, in every series that he's going to play. What do you think the chances or likelihood that Tobias Harris comes in here and has another one of those days where he just shoots lights out from behind the arc? Rob, we'll start with you.
Well, it looked like he started off like that last night. I mean, I thought he started off.
He kept us in the first quarter.
The first quarter, yeah, he was shooting the ball well, and then it kind of disappeared after that. I can't guarantee, I can't predict if it's going to happen in Game 6 because it's kind of unpredictable when it does happen. But hopefully, playing on the home court, being with the home crowd behind you, hopefully that gives him the energy, that gives him what he needs to go out there and shoot the ball well, and hopefully he has that clutch gene where the back is against the wall, and he's going to go out there and hit all of his shots and put up 25, 30 points. So, I mean, I can't predict if it's going to happen or not because I haven't seen Tobias Harris play in that many big games outside of his short little stint here with the Sixers. Hopefully it does, and if it does, then I think the Sixers will be in good shape.
And Kev, we'll phrase it a little differently for you because you are a JJ Redick fan as well, and he has also not had a very great series. Of the two of them, J.J. Redick and Tobias Harris, who do you believe will have the biggest impact in Game 6 and a hopeful Game 7 for the Philadelphia 76ers?
I would say, if I had to put my money on it, I would say Tobias Harris, but I don't know where his head has been. They're both pretty, JJ and Tobias are both pretty equal right now in like shooting points and, getting points up on the board. So I would say hopefully Tobias Harris. He's like we've just said, he's not playing as advertised. He's not doing what he needs to do. You're right. He was consistent yesterday. He's kept us in. And I was like, this is what we need. We need another player. We have 5 players on the court. Well, 4 technically, because Ben Simmons ain't doing shit, but we have 4 shooters on the court who can score. We can see them score. We can see them average 20 points, 17 points a game or whatever. What is it? JJ was averaging 17 and he's only averaging 9 now. Something like that. Same with Tobias Harris. He was averaging like 18 points in the regular season, and now even in the Brooklyn he did all right, but now he's averaging 10, like not as much, and it's like, dude, that takes a toll. So I'm hoping I think Toby's going to be able to. I think he'll be able to get out of this funk. He seems like the one who might be able to do it more so than Ben, and more so than Joel. But I don't know if that's going to be enough. We all know Jimmy Butler's doing it, but if Jimmy and Toby both go off, I think we got a good shot in Game 6.
Again, I always appreciate your confidence in looking on the bright side of things and the hopeful side of things here for 76ers basketball. It certainly is a breath of fresh air considering most of me and Rob's perspectives throughout various times throughout the 76ers season and the last 2 series. Let's talk real quick. Let's gauge percentages. How confident are you that the 76ers can still win back-to-back games and advance themselves to the Eastern Conference Finals? Rob, if you had to put a percentage on your level of confidence right now, what's your percentage and why?
The percentage confidence that they win out these last 2 games and advance to the Eastern Conference Finals, I would put it at 40%, just because
it's higher than I anticipated.
I mean, I do think that they're going to go out there, and I think that they're going to win Game 6. They're a much better team at home. I don't have a whole lot of doubt that they can put it together in Game 6 and go out there and force a Game 7. Where my worry comes in is Game 7 up in Toronto. They haven't played well on the road. I mean, in this series, they haven't played as well on the road. And Toronto's a really tough place to go up and play, especially for a Game 7 on the road. That's what worries me. I think that they can win Game 6. I don't think that they can win Game 7.
Okay, 40%. I respect the percentage. It's significantly higher than I anticipated your percentage would be. Kev, if you had to set your percentage, what are you setting it at for the 76ers advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals?
Realistically, with a sick Embiid and everything going on right now, I would say 30%. They're not even gonna win the next game if they so much as have the mentality of going out on the court the same way they just did this last game. They'll get blown out again. If they put up a fight, I think they have a chance of winning Game 6, but they're not gonna win Game 7. I mean, at home, I don't see them losing. That's another factor, but to close out the series, oh my God, I give them a 50%, 60% chance of winning the next game and 10% chance of winning in Toronto. So what's that? So
that's basically what I did too. I gave him an 80% chance to win a Game 6, and I gave him a 20% chance of winning Game 7.
Yeah, and just you know what I mean. But the win back to back, that's why I'm saying maybe 20 or like 30%. Just they're not playing like how they should be. You know, if Embiid wasn't sick, I'd be saying 80%, dude. I'd be saying if we were in the same position right now, but they weren't sick, they just happened to lose on a buzzer beater or something, I'd be like, oh, they'll be fine. But you know, we're looking right now. We got a sick Embiid and a Simmons who won't shoot, and Toby who's not being Toby, and JJ who's not getting those screens, and Jimmy's he's doing fine. He's actually playing really well right now. But that's and I'm actually not blaming Brett Brown, but we'll get to him.
So the most positive 76ers fan that I personally know, and that our listeners know, Kev, you said it at 30. Rob, you said it at 40. I'm going to shock everyone. I'm going to say 65% the 76ers advance to the Eastern Conference Finals.
What?
So, And there is, I know that if you take a look at the immediate reaction of the last 24 hours and the way that has gone, if you take a look at my comments and reactions to a lot of different things that have gone on over the last 72 hours, you would say that 65% is completely unrealistic and unreasonable. Here's my argument. The 76ers are the more talented team. Toronto has Kawhi Leonard. That's about it. Now, I'm kind of the mindset, let Kawhi do what Kawhi is going to do. If you stop everyone else in that court, Kawhi's not going to beat this team alone. Doesn't matter how good he is. That to me is number one. Number two, I do believe that Joe is going to find a way to get aggressively ahead of whatever is going on in his body and come out and play a significantly better Game 6. And that's going to be a huge difference maker. Number three, we've seen the way that Ben Simmons responds to adversity, especially coming onto his home floor. We've seen him just say the stupidest things that you could possibly say as a Philadelphia athlete, and then own that in the following interviews, and then come out and play balls out that next game in Brooklyn. We've seen him do that. We've seen that level of assertiveness. And playing in front of his own home floor, he's going to hear it. He's going to understand that his lack of play over the last two nights has made him extremely suspect. He responds well to adversity, and I have confidence in him in doing so. Tobias Harris, I've just mentioned it. We're good for one Toby game. He came out hot in a blowout loss last night. That to me is not a qualifying as a Toby game. I think Tobias Harris shoots the basketball well, and I think that this last part is going to surprise people. I think this is going to be the 30-point night from JJ Redick. JJ Redick hasn't found his shot. Joel Embiid, Kevin, you mentioned it earlier that Joel Embiid has not set those screens for him as aggressively and as strong as he normally would. He's been sick. He's obviously physically not right. I do think he's going to come in better shape in 2 days, whenever the game is, tomorrow night, versus what he is or has come into the last two games. And I think that's going to spring a new JJ. JJ has not played well this series, but I do think that we're destined for a big JJ game as well. And then I genuinely do not trust the Toronto Raptors in playoff basketball in a Game 7. I don't care if it's in Toronto, and I don't care if it's in Philadelphia. I don't care where that game would be played. I don't trust that organization. And I fully trust that in a Game 7, that the team that has more grit at the end of the day and more talent, which is both the Philadelphia 76ers, I think that they come out on top. So I do think that we're going to see a strong effort in Game 6. Kind of like the both of you, I do place a higher percentage chance of them winning Game 6 than what my percentage chance would be for a Game 7. But I do believe when push comes to shove, I have a better than not feeling that the 76ers are going to come back and win both of these games. So,
well, I like the confidence, brother.
Well, one of us has to have it, Kev. You screwed up. Originally, I was at 13.5%, but you went 30, so I had to go high. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I'm lying to everyone with my confidence. No, actually, I genuinely believe 65%. I am sticking with that percentage right now, and I'm going to live by that. So,
well, let's hope you're right, man.
I hope that I am right. I'm not ready to stop watching 76ers basketball this year, especially with my unemployment just sitting here on my ass. I need something else to watch. But before we get into a final thought here, we're going to break into a quick intersegment bit. Hinkie's cell phone. So after last night's game, we all undoubtedly we searched Twitter. We all heard all of Philadelphia's noise, all of the displeasure from fans. We all had our own text that we shared with each other. Sam Hinkie, what would you guarantee is on his cell phone after a performance like last night? Rob, you participated in this portion of the segment last time, so we'll start with you. If you had to pick something that was guaranteed to be on Sam Hinkie's cell phone after last night's terrible loss, what would it be?
Oh, people begging him to come back as their GM and get us some bench players.
I can dig that.
Yeah.
And Kev?
That's basically when he was our GM, our whole entire roster was comprised of bench players, so he knew how to pick them up at least.
It's true. It is true. And Kev, what would you say would be the one thing guaranteed to be on Sam Hinkie's cell phone after last night's miserable loss?
Probably a bunch of text messages from just saying they never should have let you go. Nothing too much. I can't really think of anything, to be honest with you. I was like, probably like what Rob said, basically. He's probably. I mean, they're probably just like, all right, these Sixers look like trash right now. You know what I mean? I mean, granted, he did get us those draft picks, but if Ben Simmons doesn't turn out, technically he only got us. We got rid of Dario, so basically it was just Joel Embiid who's doing anything for us out of all of that.
Well, I think you're a little aggressively against the process now. I don't think that we're looking to go into process era 2.0. I feel like that's a little harsh, but I respect it nonetheless. Harsh, but respect. I think for me, it is a FaceTime video with Elton Brand where he says, "I'm ringing the goddamn bell." I think that he's coming out for Game 6. I think he's going to ring the bell and he's going to ignite a fire in that building. I don't know why. We've all jokingly said it for years now that how crazy the Wells Fargo Center would explode if Sam Hinkie comes out and rings that bell. And we all do know this is never going to happen. Sam Hinkie's never going to ring that bell. He's never going to be the person that comes out. I say that changes. I say that he gets so pissed off watching his process unfold in the way that it has over the last 2 games here in this Toronto series that he says, screw you, I'm coming back, at least to ring a bell.
It would forever be known as the Sam Hinkie game.
And would help me on my 65%. If he comes out and rings that bell, there's no damn way they lose those 2 games. Just doesn't happen. But before we wrap up, do you guys have any final thoughts on the last game or 2 games of this potential series right now? Rob, we'll start with you.
Just that it was terrible. It was an absolute abomination of a performance, and it's something that I never, ever, ever want to see from any Philadelphia team ever again. And they better come out. They better have a fire lit under their asses tomorrow night because, like I said, their backs are against the wall, and I don't want a second consecutive second-round exit. I want this team to be going to the conference finals. I want them to be going beyond the conference finals. So they need to come out with their asses on fire tomorrow night and pick up a big win.
And Kev?
I would say my final thought would just be I'm not blaming Brett Brown. He has made some questionable coaching decisions I'm a little confused by, but, not every coach is 100% going to be perfect. And I think he outcoached over in Brooklyn, and the first 3 games he outcoached Nick Nurse, but now, the last 2 games, it's been a little iffy, but I'm blaming the players mainly. Like I said earlier, if they don't play as well as they did in game 3, first off, they got to stop being cocky. Like, shut up, stop flying, stop doing what you're doing. We won 1 game and they were acting like we just won the series. And now, Toronto has the upper hand on us, and they were trolling Joel Embiid when he timed out. They were trolling the Sixer fans, whatever. And you know what? We deserve it for, supporting that cockiness. I love Joel's ego. Everyone likes his personality, and I do. But what I'm saying is I'm just getting really annoyed at his cockiness and not being able to back it up recently. It's like, dude, you can't call yourself the most dominant player in the league, and then we lose by 36 in the playoffs. This was the regular season. It'd be like, all right, let's talk about it for the day. This is the playoffs. So this is a different level of basketball, like I've explained before. So shut up, play basketball, win the series, and then talk trash. Stop talking trash mid-series and then nothing. You know what I mean? Then you can't even back it up. And then don't blame it on being sick over and over again, because then that's starting to get annoying. You're starting to be like Cartman from South Park. So, but yes, sorry, it's just really disappointing. Like what Rob said, I never want to see that type of performance again. And if I ever paid money to see that performance, I would be asking for my money back, or I would be emailing Joel Embiid every single day saying, you better send me a check for $600 or else I'm coming to your apartment. I know where you live. But I'm joking. I would never do that.
Aggressive as hell
I'm joking,
today.
But
this is
yeah,
a different
sorry.
you have.
Yeah, I'm just, man, it's just disappointing. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's my final take. I don't blame Brett Brown. I blame the players, and they just need to improve.
My final takeaway is going to be this team is so very Jekyll and Hyde that if they can pull out the right effort just 2 more times, I think they cruise past. It's going to be Milwaukee, we assume. I think they cruise past them and they get themselves in the NBA Finals. I think that they would ride that, and I think it's going to be led by Jimmy Butler's professionalism, which, had you asked me when we made this trade, I would have never said that. But Jimmy has been a breath of fresh air for this locker room, for this team. I think that he's done wonders in help mitigating some of Brett Brown's shortcomings at times. Jimmy Butler has been a key right now for this basketball team. And again, we understand at certain points he does minimize the effectiveness of Ben Simmons, but I do believe that your veteran players who are the most confident can go out there and play their game, that's going to dictate the remainder of this series. I think Jimmy Butler is going to be a big part of it. And I think that if they go ahead and they pull these two games out, I actually think they cruise past Milwaukee. But that is going to be it for TJs One of Us here at the Always Next Year podcast studios. This has been Kev. We had you on, I think 3 weeks ago now was your last one. So please remind our listeners where we can find you on Twitter.
I think the last time we were on it was April 4th. I think I saw that on my messages, but April 4th. But you can find me at KevMan316 on Twitter.
All right. And as always, we do have Rob on show. Rob, where can we find you on Twitter, sir?
You can find me at radio_Rob.
You can also check out Rob's latest spot. He guest spotted on OMB Puckcast with Isaiah Chef B to the left and Dan the Flyer fan. That was an awesome show, by the way, Rob. I didn't get a chance to talk with you yet since then, but really nice work by all you guys. So do a favor, go ahead and subscribe to the OMB Puckcast as well. And then obviously subscribe to us here at the Always Next Year podcast at ANY Podcast. You can subscribe to me, the host of this show, Shane_Mead. And then we're going to let the Jackdaws, once again, give you a little Irish rock and bring you out.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
This has been a production of the Always Next Year Podcast Network. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. Please also remember to rate and review this podcast to validate our members' life choices. We appreciate it. This is AMYP, signing off.